Welcome to That's Some Bowl, a podcast to fill your ears with what else than some bowl. This is the true beginning to the podcast, and I'm stoked for what could be in store. So if you don't know me as the host, Nick Bull, I just talked about briefly, I've done a bunch of different things in terms of sports, like martial arts, soccer, basketball. I've worked in a few different workplaces like tree planting, hardware stores. I'm in architectural engineering, a bunch of different things. And even some of my interests like media, stuff like that. But, even though there are some dark times ahead, exams, there's still some fun to be done and to be listened to, like this podcast. So kicking it off without a gasp. Guest. I meant to say guest, but I said gasp. But you know what I mean. Anyways, I know, kind of crazy, right? Kicking it off with a guest for the first episode. Am I crazy or what? Well, even though it may be a long time, hearing me blab on for however long this episode might be, could be 4 minutes, could be an hour. I mean, it's kind of hard to talk to yourself for an hour, but it could even reach that point. So let's just pretend, we're in a conversation, me and you, the viewer, and you're just listening to me for this whole time. I mean, that's usually how most of my conversations go. No, I'm just kidding. But you could pretend it's like that, all right? So let's tackle into the themes of this episode today, also known as Full and Filled. So, we're going to be talking about food and a bunch of stuff like that. So let's talk about the overbearing, harsh topic known as delicious food, and the lighthearted topic known as fulfillment and destiny. I must have gotten those swapped around because, oh well. So, food varies in a bunch of things, shape, size, taste. It could be sweet, could be spicy, could be frozen, could be fresh, could be fast, could be slow. Could be a bunch of different things. But, there's always a few certain questions that always people ask, And actually, you know what? Before we get on with what I'm going to talk about, am I making you guys hungry? Because I got to be honest, I'm really hungry right now because I only ate an apple for breakfast, and I'm going to be trapped in this room for another 3 hours. I'm not trapped by will, but I want to make content. So back to it though. But, there's always a question. What is the best food, or what's your favorite food is most common, like your best friend could ask you that. Your family could ask you that, or because they want to make a certain meal for your birthday. It could even be, first date question. It could be your random Uncle Ruckus who's asking about this. But let's dive into that, shall we? Because it's a pretty daunting question, because you're basically telling somebody what you like for tastes. So let's jump into my top favorite foods, because I can't have one. There's got to be 5 here. So just kind of going off script here. So number 1, and they're not in any order really, is a good barbecue. You have a smoked brisket. It could be a sandwich. The sides, depending on what kind of style of barbecue it is. There's nothing better than having some smoked meat of some sort. It's just a different feeling. Next up, we got Japanese. So I've loved Japanese food ever since I was 5. I'd eat sashimi, so fish that's not cooked. And I've always gone to this one restaurant since I was 5, eating at that place, and it's just one of my favorite foods, and it can never go wrong whenever I go to Sakai. Shout out. 3. Well, moving on to 3, based on some heritage, I have to add an Italian, or else people I know, or even part of my family would be like, why are you putting that down? I get some hate for that. But, any Italian food, I'd say, pasta, lasagna, pizza, especially a seafood kind of pasta, any kind of mix like that. Oh my gosh. It would be really great, really great. So now let's move on to number 4, which would probably be, I'd say, just to kind of throw in a little bit of a left hook or a little mix up, Caribbean, roadies and doubles and jerk chicken. That kind of stuff is just the spices alone and stuff that goes into it. Perfection. Just can't go wrong with it. And, once you taste it, you're just like, wow, you're surprised by it. It just flavors that you didn't expect. Um, what else is there? I'm trying to think. Number 5, because it's always hard to think. Oh, Chinese. That's what it is. Chinese food varies. You got noodles, you got rice, you got any type of protein. You got beef, you got pork, you got shrimp, and you got chicken. And the many different ways: sweet, sour, salty, spicy. They could do it in really any way, and it would taste amazing. So, really, I'd be down for anything in terms of that. So, now let's get down to the more dicier topic of today. We got, what kind of foods do you like the least? Not hate, hate's a strong word, but like the least, or you're not a fan of. So we'll go with mine, and I feel like this first one's really going to set a lot of people off. Pierogies. Whoa, big shock. But the reason why it's on here, and actually it's going to be off of my least favorite list because I eat them now, but there was an incident that happened, eating it before sport, and then afterwards something happened, and yeah, that's why I didn't like it for a long time. Everyone has bad experiences with food, and then you just can't deal with it. So that was my case, but we're good now. So people change. People can change. Certain cases, maybe not, but people can change. So leading on to ones that are more just me in general, just nobody can convince me that I could change this opinion. Sun-dried tomatoes. I like regular tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes, just something went wrong. I don't know what it was, but something went wrong. Then we have, what else? Blue cheese. Can't take it. I'm sure maybe eventually if it was more like just dipping sauce, but like blue cheese on its own, no. Especially, we'll get into a story later on, maybe not today, but another episode talking about why that's another reason I would not want to have, or just don't like blue cheese in general. Goat cheese. Certain kinds are okay, but I'm just not a fan of how it tastes. Like sheep cheese I find is better than goat cheese, which is a little interesting, but... And then leading on into the last one, watermelon juice. Now, watermelon juice, it seems like a very random thing to put on a list of like least favorite foods or drinks. But there was this one time I was at this one restaurant. I don't want to name them because the rest of their food was really good. It was just the watermelon juice. So I'm a big fan of watermelon. I like watermelon a lot. But watermelon juice, that specific one, turned me off. Like it's almost like... The Grim Reaper came and like sucked the soul out of the watermelon, and just it was just this horrendous melon that was used in this juice. So, it could have just been a bad melon or whatever, but I'm gonna go with the Grim Reaper story because it's more fun to tell. So, let's get on to a bit more other stuff here. So, least favorite food, yeah, we know that. What about some restaurants? Well, restaurants, I feel like you have a bit more of a personal connection with them. You connect with them because you've gone there for a long time. You connect them because you like the taste of the food or the cultural food, or it could just be maybe it's affordable, it's a good price, the atmosphere. So we'll talk about a few different ones that I've really enjoyed or have been to over the years and thought, wow, like this place is great. So starting off with kind of more so near like my hometown, there's let's kick off with, well, one I've already mentioned, Sakai. Great place, sushi, Korean, and we've known the people who own it for a long time, and they're always consistent and make like one of the best sushi rolls I've had, and sashimi and all that. So we always stick with that. What else? In terms of other places, we got there's Ma's Chinese, which my dad introduced me to, along with this other place called The Grist. Both really cool places. One's a brewery, and the other one's Chinese restaurant. But each of them have like their own like different aspect, because like Ma's is more like interior. It's like a sick, like I don't know, like I want to say like modern-esque, not futuristic, but just really cool interior. Black with a bunch of like glass, and the lights are a bit more dim and some cool different designs. The bar is really cool, how it looks. And then The Grist is more of like it contrasts it almost as like a natural approach. You go in there and just, it uses the wood and like a bunch of different elements to like make it a bit more, I don't know, like not homey per se, but just, you feel like a bit different when you're there. So those places, and then that's kind of for atmosphere, but also their food's really good too. Um, and then I don't want to delve into some other places because they'll be within the stories. Actually, one of those will be in the stories, but I'm trying to think if there's any other ones I could kind of say. Oh, there's this one that's also kind of close to my hometown. It's like the Mountain Grill. It's an Indian place, and like they have a really good priced like lunch or special, something like that. And like, I gotta be honest, it's a really good price, really good buy, but also really good food too. And also building on my top five, those aren't just like the only foods I like. There's a bunch of other stuff: Greek, Indian. I'm trying to think what else. There's a bunch of other ones, but some stuff I haven't even tried or gone around to. So eventually we'll get there, but those are my top five per now in terms of flavors and that kind of stuff. In the flavor town, as Guy Fieri would say. All right, now we'll move to a bit more of an interesting conversation because I did say what's your favorite food or what's your least favorite food or, even just other things about food prep and all that. But let's talk about this because I think this is going to be a really cool part of this vodcast in particular, being what is your favorite meal? Now, when somebody first asks you what is your favorite meal, like you kind of think, oh, like, it could be steak and a salad, it could be soup and some kind of sandwich, or it could be this or that, right? But I feel like it can even be more than that sometimes. There's a lot more you could do with that, right? So like, let's say, you have a one friend and he goes like, hey, how was that sub place you went to the other day? And you're like, well, it was good, decent prices, that kind of stuff. Or like, how was that new like Greek place you went to that just opened up? Oh, it's it's really cool in there and that kind of thing, but it wasn't like the best thing you've ever had. It was just kind of like, I've been there, the food's good, it's like whenever we're around the area, we'll go to it again. But speaking more on the meals in particular, I think when it comes to like what's your favorite meal, and not just like talking about like what's going on. Like if you were to die the next day, like what would you eat before you would die? Like, like those videos or whatever. We could even add that in this one, talk about that, because, there's quite a few things I probably have on my list, but I couldn't give you a set thing for sure. But all I know is if we're picking a dessert, I'd probably have to say either a creme brulee or a tiramisu, because those things are just to die for in terms of that. But we'll get to that another time. Maybe when we have a guest on, then we can talk about last meals and a bunch of stuff like that. So let's get back to the meals, though. In terms of how a meal could be more favorited to you, I think it also has to do with not just the food itself, but where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, a bunch of stuff. So like the people who you went there with, what happened beforehand, what happened during the meal, how was the meal, the atmosphere around you, all those things add up to this night or day or whatever to just give you something that you can just take out and be like, that was a really good experience I had. That was like a really cool like meal I had, or like you'll just remember it. So I'm going to talk about 4 of my favorite meals I've ever had. And this may not just be in taste, but it's 4 that stick out as memories, and 2 actually that took place this year. So let's get into that. So number 1, starting off, it was back in like 2015, 16 or whatever. And my family, my mom, dad, brother, we took a little summer vacation down to this small town in Montreal. Or like, not Montreal, in Quebec. And it's called Saint-Sauveur. And it's like known for like, I think like there's skiing and snowboarding there, but they have some other cool stuff during the summer, like a cool water park or this or that. But like the area around there was so cool. It was like an old kind of town kind of place, and had that really cool aesthetic around. But let's get to the food, shall we? So it was after one of the days we were out and about, like, maybe looking at some shops, or we might have went to that water park or whatever. But one thing about it, though, was it was like getting close to midnight or whatever after being out and doing stuff. And, we're looking for a place to eat, right? And the thing is like, I was like whatever age I was at that point, like 10, 11, you're not really supposed to eat like big dinners around like midnight. At least my family said, like, never eat and then go to sleep on like a full stomach, or, indigestion will kick in. Stuff like that. But back to it. So we found this place called Maestro or Maestros. And if you ever are in the area of St. Xavier, I definitely recommend it if it's still open, but it should be because it's really awesome. And again, the atmosphere in there was cool. This nice, cool steakhouse or very trendy, hip restaurant. And I don't know, it was just everything added together, the taste of like the food itself, because I got like a surf and turf. It was like AAA sirloin steak or whatever. What else? That's some kind of like buttery shrimp, garlic mashed potatoes, and then like the seasonal vegetables or whatever. You could get that in any restaurant. But like just there specifically, it felt different. Like just being there at midnight, basically eating a meal that's like huge or whatever. It was just a really cool thing to me, and like it was a really fun night, and I appreciate like my family for taking me there, and it was one of really the standout moments there. So let's go to number 2, shall we? We're going in a bit of an order in terms of years. So this one takes me back to last year. So where I'm recording this right now is actually at my university, Carleton University. Shout out. So I started there last year as my first year, and I made a lot of cool friends, a lot more now than back in the beginning of the school, and some that might even be on the podcast, hopefully. Anyways, so taking it back to then, it was just before exam season, so not like around now, but it was maybe near midterms more so. So like September, October, or whatever. And, I'm kind of in this new place, big city. Not huge city, but bigger city than my town at least. So I was like, well, I might as well get out and about, kind of see what's around. And, since I don't really have like any super close friends at this point, I was like, well, sometimes you just got to go out and adventure stuff by yourself. Because, one thing that you'll learn to kind of appreciate later on, maybe not even later on in life, but at certain points you'll realize you got to find peace in your own company. You have to have enjoyment in your own company. I know it's a weird thing to say because it sounds like it's like the loneliest, saddest thing ever, but others could empathize with this and know that whether you're watching something, you're doing something alone, that it's just you, and that's what makes it fun. You don't have to like entertain others, make sure everybody's doing okay or wants to do this or wants to do that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, trying to do that, but it just kind of like makes it a bit more fun for yourself, because it's not like you're limited to a time constraint. It's you going out and doing something. So it wasn't even the food that was like necessarily the best. It was like, it still was really good. It was like this taco place that was down on one of the main streets. And I also was going to go see a movie like right after that. And it was just cool, just kind of walking around, being in this bigger city, eating at this place, and then going to the movie theater, and then checking out a movie by myself. It was just a good experience. Like I even went to like a concert by myself, like not a huge concert. It was just like in this like warehouse or like this bar or club or whatever, and of like one of my favorite bands. And like I tried to get a few people to go, or like at least someone to try and go, but they weren't, and I was like hesitating. Should I go? And then it turned out to be like a really fun night. Not related to this, that actually happened this year as well. But it's just that you need to sometimes find almost happiness in yourself, because there isn't always going to be someone around you to boost your mood, or for you to boost others' mood, kind of like building off on each other, you just gotta find the time for that, right? And eventually you'll learn it or you won't, but it's a cool concept, I think, to kind of come into effect. All right, now getting into the next thing. So the next meal. So that was just the second meal. Jeez. So third meal, let's talk about, what's it called again? We are going to talk about at my tree planting camp. So I'm not going to go into huge details about everything. Like, it might be another 5-10 minutes or whatever, but we'll give you a first basis. So my dad heard about like this job to go tree planting up north. You get money per tree or whatever, and you get to live at this camp or whatever. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool or whatever, And I was thinking like, oh, I can make a lot of money or this or that, right? Turns out it wasn't like that at all. Like, not at all, I should say. It's just you have to put in a lot of hard work. So for any future tree planters, you got to put in the work to get the money. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again because it was a really good experience. And I think anybody who would in the mind just want to go out and experience nature at its true core, do it. Why not? So getting to it though. So I was out there and I didn't have anyone I knew going in ahead of time. Like I had no clue what was going on. So like I had no one like that I knew coming with me. So it was just me, myself, and I'd meet some people there or whatever, right? So kind of skipping past all the people I met because we're gonna talk more in details about that in the future if we have them as guests or whatever. But anyways, so up there I had this core group. There was like 6 of us, the 6-pack, legendary squad, if you I might say. And let me tell you, even though I've known some people for my whole life, and we just met, and we stayed with each other in tents, like our own tents, of course, for about 8 weeks. You really get to know people, and those 6 are some of my 5 because I'm part of the 6 were some of the best people that I could have met, and I'm gonna make them inflate their heads with some gas here. They're gonna get a little big-headed by me saying this if they watch it, but let me tell you, all 5 of you guys, I really appreciate you all, and it was a really fun experience. Would I do it again with you all? Eventually, maybe not this year, but eventually we'll the 6-pack will reunite, okay, in some shape or form. But getting to it, so at tree planting, you go out for about 8 to 10 hours. You're in your piece of land and you're working, planting trees and whatever. But when you come back, you pay a camp cost to get food made for you or whatever, right? And there's been some horror stories with camp food there, and it was one of the things that kind of worried, but I've heard there's always been great food when it comes to that, so I was like, I'm not too worried about it. But coming to it, there was this couple that was working there as the chef and then the helper, Tanner and Lara, shout out, and they made some of the best food I've ever had in terms of I guess meals made up by just in the wilderness. They'd cook this up for about, there's 50 to 60 of us on this camp, or maybe even less than that at certain times, but man, they made some great food. That's all I can say. And it's funny how I actually knew one of them or whatever, but we'll get to that another time. But anyway, so yeah, they would cook food for us while we were gone working the day or whatever. And some days you might hit a really good number, some days you might hit a really bad number. Depends on how you're feeling that day, your land, your this, that kind of stuff. But we're not going to go into everything there. So the one day I remember we came back and the 6 of us were sitting at the table, and everybody else kind of was in a bummer attitude or whatever. I mean, the food was really good sitting there, and I remember everyone just kind of saying, oh yeah, I'm sad about this or that or whatever. And the thing is it kind of sucks when you're at a table eating really good food and everyone just, I don't want to say a cruddy attitude, but just a mopey attitude that you're just and I get it, everyone has their own emotions, you gotta feel what you gotta feel, but when there's really good food at the table, you can't be feeling like that. That's a rule with me. So anyways, I was telling them, I was like, well, the thing is, with me, anytime we were there, we'd always have a laugh. I'd always try to make them laugh, or something would go on where we'd do something funny. But that day I remember specifically, it was crazy because I told them one of the best pieces of advice I heard before going to tree planting camp was this friend of my dad's son or whatever. He texted me and said a bunch of the different stories, and he said this one line. He said, no matter what happens during the day, just forget about it at the end of the day and move on. It's the best thing to do. And sometimes you can apply that to your daily life, Think like a goldfish, or, just forget it and move on. I know they actually have a memory, but Ted Lasso's still good to quote. But, just move on because, it's just going to bring your attitude down more and more and more. And after that, every meal we had was always fun, energetic. We were always laughing, talking about stuff. So really, I could say that for any meal we had there. And certain meals were better than others in terms of food, but it mainly went from like awesome to like super awesome. So it's not like it was going down to like, oh, meh. It was a meh night tonight. No. It was always great. So that's the third meal. Now the fourth meal we're gonna talk about. It was over the fall reading week. So I was went back and like two of my other buddies I've known since like high school and one a little bit more back. We were deciding to go out for dinner one time just to hang out, talk, that kind of stuff, right? So we're like, okay, like where should we go? And they had in mind, like one of those chain places that you can sit in and dine. Not gonna name any kind of houses of some sort, but I was like, no, we got to go somewhere different, guys. We got to go somewhere that's a bit more, not like it has to be like top tier, but we got to go somewhere that's a bit more, fun or different kind of food or whatever. And they're like, okay, or whatever. And I was like, I knew this one place that was kind of close, like 20 minutes away. It was like this barbecue place or whatever. They have some pretty good food. And they're like known for some like TV shows or whatever. So we're like, okay, well, we'll go there. And, we head in his truck, and drive down there. And we called the restaurant beforehand, like, are you guys busy? That kind of thing. They're like, oh, no, not right now, that kind of thing. Get there. There's already, like, two families in front of us. And we're like, oh, man, like, we're going to be waiting a long time to get in this place. So we were just like, oh, well, we're got to do what we got to do. So then we decided to leave. And they were kind of ready to give up and go to, like, one of those places. And I was like, I do have one other idea. And that being the Ma's Chinese restaurant or whatever, which was another 20 to 25 minutes away, which granted would it be a long time, but the food was going to be worth it. So I was like, okay, guys, like, let's go there. And they're like, why though, or whatever. And some of them were just not like complaining about it to like the max. They were just kind of like going on being like, but why? Like, why do we got to do this? And I'm like, it's just, we got to go change it up, go to a different place. So like, okay. So then in the car, I made a reservation for the place going down there. Then after, reservation, the drive, and then also a little bit of parking predicament, we managed to get in the restaurant. And from the outside, they're like, Nick, what is this place? So what is in here? And I'm like, trust me, you'll like it. So then we walk into this place, and, we're all kind of wearing more casual dress. Maybe a bit more, not like super fancy, but, just like I don't know, like long t-shirt, just kind of different pattern, whatever. And we walk in there, and they're like, Nick, you didn't tell us we had to dress up. I was, no, it's not like that super fancy. They were thinking like we're going to pay like $60+ per dish or something just because of how it looks. But, sometimes how places look isn't always how it is, right? And, eventually, so like we ordered our different food. So like we got like this like sweet and sour pork. We got a dried scallop rice, and then we also got this, I think it was a chicken dish, some kind of chicken cashew dish or whatever. And it really surprised them because they're like, this is like some of the best Chinese food we've had. And I was like, I know it is, that's why I brought you here. And then when it came to the bill afterwards, I was like, listen guys, the way that you do it is you order the like 3 or 4 different dishes, and you just split it amongst the 3 of us, and it'll be cheaper than some of those other meals you go to and get, and sure have it. That's what it was. And, they really liked that place. And they're like, okay, Nick, we got to listen to your recommendations a bit more. And I'm like, I know you do. So those are the 4 different meals where each of them kind of has a bit of a story between either before, during, after, or even just the food itself, the atmosphere, everything that adds up to it to create those moments, right? And that's what I think kind of makes like your favorite meal. Because, favorite food and favorite meal, a little bit different. That's what I'm going to say. So I just want to talk about that in terms of that. So, but the reason I told those 4 specifically is 1, talking about my family. 2, one about me adventuring by my own. 3, me going out with not going out, actually just staying on camp and eating food with like 5 new friends I just made. And then 4, going to a place with like some of my friends that I've known for a long time. So it really shows that, it can bring a bunch of different connections. But it's kind of time to get into the next topic of the episode here. The reason why it's called Full and Filled isn't just because I'm full and filled on food. It's talking about fulfillment, destiny, and purpose, all right? And, those 4 meals, it could have been different if we went to a different place. It could have not have been the same feel, It could have felt, I don't want to say it's like off, or it could have just been weird if certain things didn't happen, It's like, certain things, it could be people, it could be events, it could be opportunities, it could be careers, are like placed in front of you at different points in your life. And, you don't realize until you see it, like there's this like big hanging pointing sign being like, you got to go for it, or you got to like talk to them. You have to interact with this sort of opportunity. And sometimes it may be something that leads to something even bigger, or it just might be a small point in this whole grand scheme of things. And that's what's just crazy to think, is how, you can get like an amazing night out of something that you didn't expect. And which I'm hoping for the future, for any of my new friends, for any new opportunity, career, or anything that comes in my way. It's always fun, because you gotta sometimes just ride the roller coaster and see where it goes. So, kind of on destiny, purpose, some people think, it's a set thing, it's already written for you. Whatever's gonna happen, it's written, and that kind of thing. Others believe it's not written, but you make it yourself, your choices that you make on an everyday basis. They go, you could be small thing from eating a turkey sandwich to, I don't know, like going out with some friends, or asking out somebody, or what else is kind of crazy? I don't know, going bungee jumping off like a bridge, like one of the tallest bridges in the world, or, taking big leaps like that, And those are like choices, right? And not just set things, but it could be set points. But it really asks the question, like, what is everything? How does that play into the fact? And why am I talking about this with food? Well, not a lot of people know this about me. Well, some people do. But I like to make, kind of interesting analogies. So incoming, a time for a little bit of an analogy here. So based on this purpose and fulfillment and destiny, you could think about it as something even simpler. All right, tying back to kind of what we've established this whole episode. So, destiny and purpose, it's like a meal, it takes time to be made, There's a bunch of different ingredients, big, small, spicy, sweet, maybe umami, anything added into it to create something different. And while some things could be on the recipe, there could be secret ingredients added in. And after so long, once you reach this final part, that you'll feel full and filled. Get it? You'll feel fulfilled because of what happened along the way. And just because of you being able to partake in that meal, destiny, purpose, from those different ingredients and time that's given into it. So I think it's time to kind of wrap the episode there, but I just really wanted to kind of dig deep into that and give you that really cool thing at the end, or a really stupid thing. Just depends on how you look at it. But that's the first episode, full and filled, with yours truly, Nick Bill. And always, if you're ever tuning in again, just to hear some bull. All right. Well, peace out, and I hope you either consider being a guest on the show after hearing some of my interesting insights about food and fulfillment. And I'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll do pretty good. All right, bye.